Hey everyone, and welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm Crystal Kennedy, and this is the show where we bring you all the day's biggest movie news, and of course we give you insight into what it all means. Joining me, as always, is AMC Movie News Senior Editor, Mr. John Campia.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. Good morning, Crystal Lee. I'm back. Some people were wondering where I was last week. I've been going to Vegas a lot lately. Now, the first time I went about 2 months ago, I went for CES. Then I had to go back again for CinemaCon. Last week I went for myself, actually. Every year there's this event called the World Series of Poker. And every year I always go for a couple of days to play in a couple of the events of the World Series of Poker. So I did that, but everything's fine. I'm back and ready to go.
How dare you go away for
yourself? I know, crazy.
How dare you? We also have joining us today, Mr. Dennis Singh, our production supervisor. Hey, Dennis.
How's it going, everyone? I hope your weekends were all pleasant, like mine was.
Woohoo! We all had good weekends. I don't know if they were as good as John's, but we had good weekends. All right, let's start with this. Well, the box office numbers for the weekend are in, and it's fair to say there were a couple of surprises. The biggest surprise was probably that the new Will Smith, Jaden Smith film, After Earth, not only didn't win the weekend box office, but actually came in third place, just behind Now You See Me. The second small surprise was that Fast and Furious 6 maintained the top spot at number 1. John, what do the weekend's numbers tell you?
Well, first, let's start with the Fast and Furious. That's a surprise. It really is. Now, some people, really it is. Think about it. Only twice in history has the Memorial Day weekend box office champion, in this case, Fast and Furious 6, only twice in history has the Memorial Day box office champion gone on to continue to be number 1 the following week. The first one was one of the Jurassic Park films, and the second one was a Pirates of the Caribbean film. It is not easy in the summer movie season to stay at number 1, especially when you got a Will Smith sci-fi action film opening. Those are always huge. But the biggest surprise is clearly that After Earth came all the way in third. It finished below Now You See Me, which, it looks like a really, really nice, fun little film. But this is a Will Smith science fiction action adventure film. You would think that it's automatic. That means huge box office. Everybody just thinks, put Will Smith in a movie, huge box office. Now you let Pursuit of Happiness go, and that, what was it, 6 pounds or 7 pounds, whatever it's called. You let that go because, those are more dramatic pieces. But you put Will Smith in a big box office, instant $100 million film. Made about $25 million bucks. And that to me is the big thing. Now, this tells me a couple things. Number one, that the real trend here, that individual movie stars do not guarantee box office. We've known that for a few years now. The climate has changed. Now, don't get me wrong. If you put some brand new actor, Ed Newface, in After Earth instead of Will Smith, sure, it makes less than $25 million. Absolutely. But it's not like the old days where you're putting in some big star that automatically guarantees big box office. Those days are gone. I remember there was a news story recently about Johnny Depp. The studio asked Johnny Depp to take a pay cut for an upcoming movie, and he's refusing. And I read a lot of people writing, Johnny Depp is worth $25 million or $30 million, whatever he was originally supposed to get. He's worth that. No, he's not. No, he's not. You see the Rum Diaries? You see how that did? Johnny Depp ain't worth it. Now you say, but he's a really great actor. Yeah, well, guess what? I got this guy who comes and does plumbing at my apartment who is awesome at his job. One of the best I've ever seen. I ain't paying him $25 million bucks. Now, I'm not going to get into a whole context of scale pay debate here, but no, movie stars are not worth that much. So then you can start getting into the question about, well, why? I mean, why does a movie like After Earth not do that well? And I think there are a couple of reasons. I know Dennis and I are talking. I want to hop on this one, Dennis, before I throw it over to you. I think a lot of people like me were instantly are still thrown off by this concept of the nepotism in this, of Will Smith just putting his own kid in all these movies. And, I think he was one of the producers behind Karate Kid, put his own kid in it. Now, that actually worked out because I thought Jaden Smith was actually great in Karate Kid, so I'll give him that. And I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way instantly. I think there's some other reasons, but Dennis, you're looking at what happened at the box office this weekend. The Will Smith sci-fi action film comes in third. What are some of the reasons you think that is?
Yeah, I think the audience, because of like the internet now, they're much more aware of these things about, like, well, one, we have M. Night Shyamalan, who they tried to hide from the marketing of this movie.
They hit him pretty well.
They hit him pretty well, but I think as it went on, people started to get wise to the fact that he directed, and his reputation is to be frank, not very good, you know. And so that was one turnoff, and then two, the nepotism thing, and not just Will Smith putting his son in the movie, but also the fact that it's kind of like a bait and switch, where you can tell from the trailers that Will Smith is not really the star of this movie. He's there and he's throughout it, but he's not really the star. And so I think that's another reason why people didn't go see it. Whereas if Will Smith was the main guy, I think it would have done a lot better.
I think the first time we talked about this movie, after the first trailer came out, I think we sat on this show and said, man, I'm looking at this trailer, and yeah, it's got a lot of Will Smith in it, but I got a feeling it's a bait and switch. I got a feeling that Will Smith is probably in a finite part of this film, and really the rest is all Jaden Smith. And I think a lot of the other people, viewers, saw that as well. I don't know that I agree with you about the M. Night thing. I think the majority of average moviegoers still had no idea that M. Night, the Shamhammer, directed this film. And I say the Shamhammer lovingly because while he's really awful right now, I still believe that, and I mean this sincerely, I still believe the same guy is still in there. This is still the same guy who made Sixth Sense and made Unbreakable. And made, I'm not The Village was terrible, but made, what was the one with the aliens with Mel Gibson?
Signs.
Signs. I know a lot of people don't like Signs. I actually thought Signs was pretty damn good, aside from the last 5 minutes, which were awful. But I believe he's still the same guy. I think he's got it in him to still, I think there is still a couple of great movies in M. Night Shyamalan. I really do. I think the Shamhammer still has a couple of really good ones in him. That being said, I do think his name would have turned people off right now. That's why they very intelligently hid his name. But I remember thinking a few weeks ago, you know, hey, if After Earth is a big hit, and if it's really good, and I thought it looked pretty good at the time, but I remember thinking a few weeks ago, if it's a big hit and if it's really good, this could be the door opening back up for M. Night. But if you're going to have M. Night direct it, and it's a Will Smith sci-fi action, and it comes in third on its opening weekend. Dennis, quick question. Do you think this closes the door on the Shamhammer moving forward? Like, if he can't have a hit film, like with more than a $25 million opening weekend in a Will Smith sci-fi action here, does this close the door for him, or do you think there's some people will still take a chance on M. Night?
I think the door is closing. Maybe like the door's almost all the way closed, but his like big toe is like blocking it from being totally closed. Unfortunately, I think people are still going to take a chance on it because box office wise, like even movies that were critically panned, like The Happening and The Last Airbender, which I think are two of the worst movies ever made, they actually didn't do that bad at the box office.
Right.
So I mean, they weren't successes, but they weren't a big bomb like After Earth seems like it's going to be. So I think that they'll give him one more chance. And I think that'll be it.
One more chance. You know, when it gets to that point, though, like you and I talked about this before, Dennis, when it gets to the point where a movie like Devil was coming out and they put up on the screen from M. Night and the audience laughs, yes. Which not happened good. In all the theaters. When that trailer came up and the name M. Night would come up, everybody would laugh. When that happens, it's theaters get nervous. Obviously, movie studios get nervous. So I still think he's got a couple of great films in him. I hope he can rebound. I really do. But, yeah. What's next?
I just have to say that I'm really proud of Now You See Me because that was my most anticipated film this year. So
really?
I'm proud of Now You See Me.
Awesome.
I'm a magic girl. All right. This past week, the Comic Palooza event took place in Texas. One of the highlights of the event was an appearance by X-Men star Patrick Stewart, who took some time to talk about the upcoming X-Men Days of Future Past. Among other notable comments he made during his address, Stewart admitted that after the events of X-Men 3, he thought his X-Men days were over, that he believes Days of Future Past is the X-Men of all X-Men films. And he revealed that while shooting on this film is now done, Hugh Jackman will be shooting for the duration until August. John, what stands out to you about these comments from Stewart the most?
Well, aside from X-Men, it was the same speech. I don't know if any of you guys who follow me on Facebook or anything, I put this up on Facebook this week. at that same speech that he was giving, he talked about, a fan got up and talked to him about his stance on and his support of abused women. It was one of the most emotionally beautiful things I've seen on YouTube in forever. I put it up on my Facebook. It's unbelievable. His passionate, eloquent talk on abuse, specifically domestic abuse. It's an incredible thing. If you have not seen it, look it up on YouTube. You can see it on my Facebook page, whatever. It's worth seeing. But now let's get to the X-Men stuff. Yeah, I watched this speech of his, and he says something. Look, Patrick Stewart isn't one of these rah-rah cheerleader guys. But he comes out and says, look, this I believe, and I believe he believes it. He said, I believe this X-Men film will be the X-Men film of all X-Men films. Okay, great. Take with a grain of salt that he's an actor in the movie and he stands a lot to gain from this. I still find that very encouraging. But the other really key thing in here is this. He talked about how the shooting schedule is very complicated. He said because people like me, Ian McKellen, Halle Berry, and Paquin, we all have very complicated shooting schedules. So we would come in for a couple days, leave, come back in, do this, and this. But when he said Hugh Jackman is there for the duration of the shooting, you know, a lot of us were wondering when Jackman was announced fairly late that, oh, you know, Wolverine's going to be there. It probably won't be a huge role, but he'll have a role in it, much like everybody else is going to be in it. But this statement to me, saying, while all of the rest of us are coming in and out and just shooting a little bit here, I believe Patrick Stewart shot for a month, whatever, and he said they're going to still be shooting until August. When he says that Hugh Jackman is going to be there for the duration, I'm like, oh, so this is basically Wolverine 3.
Yeah.
Like, is this gonna primarily be Wolverine? Look, as a fan of the films and as a fan of the character, I'm encouraged by that. I want to see a lot of Wolverine. He's my favorite X-Men character, aside from Magneto. And so I'm encouraged by that. That stood out to me the most. Dennis, what stands out to you when you hear Patrick Stewart talking about all this stuff?
Yeah, I believe him that this X-Men's gonna be the big one. I think Bryan Singer has a lot of motivation too, because he didn't do the third one, which people didn't like, and so people regard him as coming back and saving the franchise.
Right.
And quite frankly, Bryan Singer kind of wants to have a big hit, you know?
Yeah.
Like Jack and the Giant Slayer didn't do that well. It did okay. But
Bad movie.
Yeah, so people are you know, expecting, you know, something a lot better, and I think this one is where he's going to deliver it. And as far as Hugh Jackman, I think that's a good news, especially the studio probably thinks it's great as well, because Wolverine, quite frankly, is the most popular X-Men character. And whenever he's in a movie, or how if he's a main character, it always does well.
Yeah, and we'll see how big of good news this is after we see X-Men, or after we see the Wolverine. Because if the Wolverine is great, like we think it's going to be, that'll really increase the anticipation. Don't forget, with Bryan Singer, I think you're dead on. He's got a couple of floppers, at least disappointing films in a row. You can make that 3 with the way the most people reacted to Superman Returns, a film which I appreciated, but I know most other people didn't. So yeah, he's looking for that redemption film, and here's hoping this is it.
I just can't wait to see them all back, because First Class was amazing for me. Although the next James Bond film, Bond 24, is still about 3 years away, it appears they've already cast the new Bond girl. According to reports from Yahoo Movies, actress Penelope Cruz has signed on for the next 007. Turning 40 next year, this would make Cruz the oldest Bond girl in the film franchise history. John, is Cruz a good fit for Bond?
There are certain... Now look, Hollywood is filled with gorgeous women, obviously, and gorgeous men, gorgeous people everywhere. You know, I joke a lot sometimes in this office about how, look... I could walk out onto the sidewalk here out front of the AMC Burbank 16 where our studio is, and I can throw a quarter, and that quarter is going to hit 10 hot people before the quarter hits the ground. That's just LA. That's what it means to live in LA. Being a good Canadian kid, it's a different world. Not that there aren't beautiful Canadian girls. I'm getting myself into a hole. Anyway.
You're in trouble.
But there are still a few, even though we get desensitized to the beautiful people here, there are still a few beautiful people here that you could just lose control of yourself if you're in the room with them. Penelope Cruz is one of those. She is such a classic. She's both a classic and exotic beauty. She is on that level of beauty that you write songs about. I mean, that's Penelope Cruz. And she's just stunning. And the fact that she's almost 40, you know, I think she's the new Monica Bellucci. Bellucci from The Matrix, who played Persephone, I believe, in that. You know, that woman she's in her late 40s. She's almost 50. Still one of the absolute, and I'm not saying this to be, oh, she's good looking for an older woman. No, Monica is still one of the hottest women on the planet, period. That's it. And I believe that Penelope Cruz is one of those. The fact that she would be the oldest Bond girl in history, I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. This whole notion that men can be sex symbols until they're 65, but women can only be sex symbols until they're 21, I believe is ridiculous, because some of the hottest women in this business are in their 40s. I hate to break it to you. And I think having Penelope Cruz in there, she's a great fit because she has an international flavor to her. That's great for Bond. She's an absolutely stunning beauty. She can act. Yeah. She's a solid actress. She's an Academy Award level actress. And the fact that she's at that age that she's at, I think is just an added bonus. Des, what do you think about Penelope Cruz being added to Bond?
Oh, I think it's a great fit. I think she you're right. She's at that top level, like with the Halle Berrys and stuff like that, where it's not just good looking, it's another level. Yeah, you can't even almost explain how gorgeous she is. I think it's a perfect fit, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you know, quick story. I remember the first time I met Penelope Cruz. I met her the same time I met Javier Bardem. It was at the after party for the premiere of Vicky Cristina Barcelona. And I remember, first of all, how floored I was by exactly how good looking Javier Bardem is.
He is.
I mean, there are some guys in Hollywood that are so good looking, you start to feel inadequate around them. And man, I was feeling really inadequate standing there with Javier Bardem. You think he's good looking on screen. Holy crap, this is a good looking dude in person. But Penelope Cruz was the other one. I was like I was tongue tied. I was not prepared for how beautiful she is in person. It's just one of those things.
I mean, I'm a little upset it's not me, but I guess I can be
I get tongue tied with you every day, Chris.
I figured. All right, our next topic, John, it's not really movie news, but it's something that we here get asked a lot. So I wanted to talk to you about it.
Sure.
We have a lot of people that write in and they want to do what we do. They love our show. They love that we talk movies and they want to know how they can get started. And I know that you wrote this really great article a while ago called 20 Tips for Starting Your Own Movie Blog. So I just wanted to kind of talk to you about that today.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy. We get questions all the time in our mailbag for topics, everything from Spider-Man being in the Avengers 2 to who should be the new Batman, who should be the new Iron Man. We get a lot of these questions, but I'm telling you, maybe the number 2 or number 3 most commonly asked question we get in the mailbag is, how can I have your job? How can I do what you do? Because I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to sit here and be coy about it. I get to wake up, watch, and talk about movies all day for a living. And that's great because movies are my passion. They've always been my passion since my earliest possible memories. So yeah, a while ago, now I believe the best way to do it, to get involved in doing what I do, what I normally tell people is this. Guys like Mirko over at Coming Soon, or guys like Steve Frosty Weintraub over at Collider, or guys like Neil over at Film School Rejects, when these guys who are running these amazing movie sites, when they, I believe, are looking for new staff to add, it's nice if you have a journalism degree on there. It's nice if you have, those are great. But what guys like me and guys like them are looking for in people is not what can you theoretically do, it's what have you done. So I always tell people, if you want to get involved in like doing this for a living, the best thing to do is to start your own movie blog. Now, there are no quick answers. There's no one magic pill you can pop and in 3 weeks be doing movie punditry for a living. Doesn't exist. But I believe the best way to do it is through starting your own movie blog, so that when you talk to a guy like Steve Weintraub or a guy like Neil or a guy like Mirko, you can say, this is what I have done. Here's an example of what I have done. So yeah, I've always tell people that's the way to do it. And in that article you mentioned, I say, here are 20 tips for getting going on it and for what you can do.
You do. And the first one I love because you have to do it because you love the movies.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you go wrong there?
Yeah, do movie blogging. Don't do movie blogging because you want to get paid for it. Do movie blogging because it is legitimately your passion. Movies are legitimately my passion. There are a few things I'm really passionate about, like as far as things go. I'm really passionate about MMA, mixed martial arts. I'm really passionate about hockey because I'm Canadian and it's in my DNA. And my lifelong passion has been movies. People will tell if you are passionate about your topic or not. And people will tell right away if you are not passionate about movies. So if you're going to start a movie blog, make sure it's because you're passionate about movies and you just want an outlet to talk about movies. Don't do it, because people know right away if you're just doing it to try to get a paycheck out of it.
I also like that you tell them not to buy a domain and to start with a free platform.
Yeah, my tip number 2 was starting movie blogging. Don't start off as if you're professional. Make sure you can stick with it. So I always suggest to people, don't invest money. Just start by writing. Get a free platform like WordPress or Blogger or something like that. I'm sure there's some other services as well. And just start doing it for no money. Just start doing it without paying any money to make sure that, hey, I can do this for 2 months and I'm not getting tired of it. It wasn't just a passing fad. I can do this. I'm fine. I'm growing in it. Then invest a little bit of money, but start with free services. That's my second tip.
And I also like 3 through 5, which all come together. It's start small, but be consistent.
Yeah, I mean, that's really important. Don't start off, when you're starting your own movie blog, I always tell people this, don't start by writing 10 articles a day, because you're going to now I got to a point when I was running my site, The Movie Blog. I got going, when I was doing it, I was writing 10 to 15 articles a day, but you don't start that way. You burn out quickly. Build up to it. It's like going into the gym, right? You don't start by trying to bench press 240 pounds. You go in and you bench 70 pounds or you bench 80 pounds. And you build yourself up so you can get up to those weights. I always tell people, start medium, maybe 1 to 3 news posts a day. Be consistent. Don't go 3 days without posting. Don't write 20 articles one day and 1 article the next. Start with 1 to 3 and then slowly start to build up as you go.
And then you also posted that you want them to read other established movie blogs, because you have to know what's important around you, right?
Here's one of the cool things. I always tell people this. Wayne Gretzky didn't become the greatest hockey player in history by playing hockey by himself. He played with other players. And he constantly saw other players and what they do and got motivated by them and challenged by them. He'd see one guy do a certain move and then he could do a certain move. The same thing with basketball players or I do a lot of sports analogies. But if you want to start a movie blog and you want to really get into it and you want to be good at it, then read these other amazing movie writers who are in the web sphere right now. Peter Serretta over at Slash Film, or Neil at Film School Rejects, or guys over at Coming Soon like Edward Douglas or Silas Lesnick, or get into reading these guys, because if you want to do what they do, you got to be inspired, model yourself after some of their aspects, play to your strengths. But if you're not reading other movie websites, why should other people read movie websites, particularly the one you're writing? So get immersed in that world and start reading what those guys do.
I also thought it was really interesting that you said to focus on one kind of film rather than trying to talk equally about all of them. Yeah,
when I started my old site, The Movie Blog, I decided right away that, because I had a number of my friends who were doing other types of things, I wanted my site to be about popular movies. And by popular movies, I mean movies that are going to be playing in theaters everywhere. There are certainly niche markets with movies. You can have foreign films, kung fu films, horror films, whatever, independent film. I decided my particular writing was going to be about the wider popular movies because that's what I was more experienced in. I know I've got a friend named Todd Brown who runs an amazing foreign film, Asian film site called Twitch. It's just incredible, and he is the best in the world at what they do there. Then you got specific horror films like Shock Till You Drop, where guys like Ryan Rotten over there, who write specifically about horror, do amazing stuff. Just write about what it is you're most versed in. Don't be popular because I just want it to be popular films. If you're just into popular films, then just write about popular films. If you're into 80s buddy cop movies, then just write about 80s buddy cop movies. If you're really into horror, be horror. Find what area is most influential to you and write about that.
What about podcasts?
Oh, God, podcasts are so important. Podcasts are so important today. I tell people, start podcasting right away. And really do a video podcast. It is super easy. Get a webcam, or you probably got one built into your laptop already. Get a microphone. That's really key. Don't use the built-in microphone on your computer. And just get on YouTube for free and start doing a weekly video series, whether it's 5 minutes long or an hour long. Just get into that habit, because media, being able to branch out to different areas of media, not just the written word, but also video or audio, super key, super important. I was the first movie podcast in the world when I started the Movie Blogs podcast, and it's one of the best things that I ever did. So yeah, start podcasting right away.
And then I know we didn't have time to go through all 20, but lastly, and my favorite, because I know that you live by this, is don't be spineless. Have an opinion. Why is that so important?
Yeah, it is really key. Look, anybody can go to any... The thing about blogging is it needs to be personal. Mm-hmm. It needs to be about... Really, ultimately, a blog is about personal experiences, thoughts, things like that. It is really, really key to put your spin on things. Because look, the basic movie news, anybody can get from anywhere. Anybody can get from anywhere. There's a million sites to just get the facts. The reason people were reading me on my old website, and the reason that people watch me now, is not just because I just tell them what's happening. I tell them what's happening, and then I put my own personal spin on it. And I think that's the important thing. That's what the best writers out there do, I believe. Not necessarily the best journalists. Journalists is different from movie blogging. Those are two separate things. I can go into that another time. But it is really key, I think, to make sure that you put your personal view on it. Because personal views, and look, it doesn't matter if people agree or disagree with you. You know, sometimes I get people emailing me saying, hey, I didn't like your opinion about this movie, therefore I don't think you're credible. Well, then you know what? I don't want you as a viewer, because if you're not intelligent enough to know that all film is subjective, and it's not about agreeing with each other, it's about, are you intelligent about your position? Look, Roger Ebert was my favorite film critic, but I disagreed with him at least half the time. At least half the time. But he was my favorite because he was great at at pointing out things in a film and articulating his position. And even though it didn't make me change my mind, it would help me really understand my own position when I would hear somebody talking about the other side of the coin. And I think the people who've been reading and watching me for the longest time are the ones who don't agree with me all the time, who disagree with me, but we're engaged and we're entertained by the differences of opinion. So yeah, don't be afraid to express your opinion, stand by your opinion, open and engaging, put your personality on it, and I think that's absolutely one of the key things. You know what? I'm going to put in the show notes. If you want to see the full article, the 20 tips in starting your own movie blog, I'm going to put show notes in this article where you can, with a link to where you can go and read that full article and go take a look at it, and hopefully it'll be helpful to you. Well, listen, folks, time's starting to run out, so we're going to get right now to mailbag. Listen, if you've got a topic or a question that you would like us to address on the show, you can email us anytime at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Every day we pick out a couple questions and address them on the show. But listen, we've also started another show called AMC Mailbag, because we only have time to address like 3 or 4 questions on this show, and you guys send us like 200 questions a day. So we started another show that we do like 2 to 3 times a week called AMC Mailbag, where we just do mailbag questions. So keep your eye open for that, because if you send us a question to amcmovietalk@gmail.com, your question could get asked on this show or on AMC Mailbag. Keep your eyes open. So, Crystal, you've got a few mailbag questions pulled out. What do we got?
I do. David J. writes in and says, hey everyone, been loving the show for a long time now and been trying to get the right question in. Hopefully this is the one. With the new casting additions to the Expendables 3 cast, I was wondering what you thought if Jason David Frank, the original Green Ranger from MMPR, was included. He was a big action star to a lot of kids in the 90s, and he's still kicking butt in the MMA championships, proving he's still badass.
Yeah, and of course, by MMPR, you're talking about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. The guy was the Green Ranger. And he is a legit mixed martial art fighter. He's not good enough to be in the UFC, but he's a legit mixed martial arts fighter now. He is, a legitimate badass, no doubt. But here's the problem. We're talking about Expendables 3. You're talking about a very specific type of film that takes very extremely popular action stars and putting them in. The very fact that, where is his name? Jason David Frank. The very fact that you had to say Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the very fact that you had to specify that just kind of goes to prove nobody knows who he is and nobody cares. I mean, in this context. I wish him all the success in the world. I do. I'm just saying in this context, nobody knows who he is. So, I think he would be a completely bad fit. Personally, I think he'd be a totally wrong fit. He would not fit in the Expendables 3 because nobody knows who he is. Nobody would care that he was there. And that is, the antithesis of what they're going for with Expendables, because they're putting in the big, giant action star names. And the very fact that you just say his name and nobody knows who you're talking about kind of goes against that. But I don't know, what do you think, Dennis? Am I looking at this wrong? Do you think he could be a fit for something like the Expendables 3?
No. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, the key word here is iconic. That's what they have, iconic action heroes in these movies, and that's what people want to see. They want to see them all teamed up together, and no one knows who he is. I didn't know who he was. Right. I had to look him up, and I didn't really watch Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I mean, plus, I don't know. don't they have a mask on the whole time?
Well, not the whole, while they're in their
Most
Power
of
Rangers
it.
outfits,
Okay.
yeah, but
So, but
come on, Dennis.
You
come
didn't
on,
watch
man.
Power Rangers?
Yeah, my cred has gone down now.
Down.
But yeah, like no one knows who he is, so it doesn't make any sense.
Right, agreed. Okay, what's next?
Jacob Walldrop writes, I love the show and watch every episode. Thanks for the great job. My question is this. I often see people write in and ask why a movie they liked is getting a sequel. You will then point out that the movie did not do well and the people didn't care for it. However, I noticed that they have a Grown Ups 2 about to hit theaters. The movie has a 9% approval rating and didn't do well in box office sales. However, it got a sequel. I think we would all agree that Cars was the worst of the Pixar movies from a ratings point of view, but it got a sequel while we still wait for a follow-up of The Incredibles. Why do some movies that do poorly get follow-up movies?
I think there are a couple reasons why it could happen. I mean, historically, there are a couple of great examples, I believe, of bad movies that got sequels. I thought the first Rush Hour film with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker was terrible. But oddly enough, I love Rush Hour 2. I don't know why. I love Rush Hour 2. I just love it. One of the best examples, though, is the original Star Trek film. Awful. You go back and try to watch that original Star Trek film, man. Like the very first Star Trek movie with William Shatner and Leonard, all the cast back. That is a terrible movie. It was terrible then. It's terrible now. But they did a sequel anyway. And what did we get? Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. One of the best sci-fi movies ever. I mean, I love that movie. It's iconic. It's a classic. So it can happen. So I think there are a couple of reasons why they might do sequels sometimes. Number one, they thought there was great potential there that they didn't live up to, but there's still potential to do much better. I think that's why Underworld got a second film originally. But the bigger reason is this. All movie making is about making money. For studios, the people who put these movies out, it's about making money. If we make this movie, do we have a chance to legitimately make money? Because it's a business. That's what it is. Nobody does anything in business to lose money. And so when you're talking about some films, like let's look at Cars for a second. Yeah, Cars was the weakest
But it was
of the
so
Pixar
good.
films. Well, I mean, a lot of people love it. A lot of people do love it.
Good.
But saying it's the weakest of the Pixar films, it's like saying, I don't know, Keith Jardine is the least tough of the UFC fighters, who will still kick 99.9% of everybody's asses in the world. But saying you're the weakest of the Pixar films is still pretty good. But the reason it gets a sequel probably pretty quickly, as opposed to like an Incredibles 2, which we all want an Incredibles 2, is because they know it will make money. They know the kids, the younger kids with Cars, because you know a lot of Pixar films like Up and WALL-E, they can have a lot more mature themes that adults love. I've always said this, Pixar doesn't make kids films. They make kid-friendly films. But Cars was definitely the most kids film that I think they've ever done. So there's potential there. Plus, they can make a lot of money on the Cars brand beyond just the movies. They're making Cars Land at Disneyland. The merchandising is high profit. So they have a lot of motivation to do a film like that they know is going to make money. And, you know, you look at something like Grown Ups. Yeah, the first Grown Ups film was very negatively received, but everybody went to go see it.
Yeah.
It made a lot of money. And so they know if we make another one, it won't make as much as the first one because everybody was disappointed with it, but it will make money. So they get together and make it. And that's how they do it. Dennis, can you see any other reasons why, you know, poorly received first films would go ahead and get sequels?
Yeah, it's basically potential. I mean, they see potential for making more money. But I think he's exaggerating. I'm not defending these movies. Cars, yeah, it was the weakest of the Pixar movies. I didn't see Grown Ups, but they didn't like lose a buttload of money. I mean,
No, they all made money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like Grown Ups, I think grossed 160 million, and Cars made 240 million. So you're not talking about box office failures. So you know, they weren't huge hits, but they made enough where they would at least think about making a sequel, and that's why they did it.
Danny writes, I'm new to your channel, so I'm not sure if you've gone over this in the past, but I've heard in recent years of talk about a Jaws reboot. I'm a huge Jaws fan, the original, mind you, and not the crappy sequels, and personally think this would be a horrid idea. I do not think it would work. To me, what carried the movie wasn't the plot necessarily, but the characters and great acting. You cannot recapture scenes like the Robert Shaw speech about the Indianapolis, the Chief Brody son scene at the table, or get a trio to work the way Roy Schneider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss and recapture the same kind of magic. Have you heard if there is any truth to this at all?
First of all, state and I want to go home. I'm tired and I want to go to bed. I had a little drink about an hour ago and it went right to my head. I love that scene. Look, you nailed it.
Good scene.
Dennis and I were actually just talking about Jaws before we started doing the show. This is a film I watch at least once every 2 years. I sit down and watch it, and you're dead on right. That the magic of Jaws isn't the shark, although, you know, Bruce, the name of the shark, I mean, revolutionized things, right? But that's not the strength and the backbone of that movie. The backbone is Richard Dreyfuss, you know, Roy Schneider, Robert Shaw, the chemist, the scenes of those guys sitting around on this little boat. We need a bigger boat. Sitting around in this boat, and just their interaction and talking was the power of this movie. That story about the Indianapolis going down in that movie, one of the top 10 scenes in cinematic history. That scene is so riveting, and all it is a camera on this dude's face telling a story, and it is one of the best scenes ever. If you haven't watched the original Jaws, it's paramount unto never saying you've never watched the original Godfather or whatever. Jaws is a film you must see. It is not a hokey, just shark action, blah, blah. No, this is a brilliant film that you must watch. Now, getting on to the questions about reboots, I don't think you have to exactly recapture, you're never going to recapture the chemistry that you had with, you know, Shaw and Schneider and Dreyfuss, but you don't, that's not your primary concern. Primary concern is just make a great movie. That's all you got to do, just make a great movie. Now, there are attempts being made to reboot Jaws. As far as I know, to the best of my knowledge, and I could be wrong about this, there is no green light given to anything yet. There are no plans to do another Jaws, but I do know people have been taking passes at it, seeing if they could get one made, because there's great brand recognition with Jaws. And I think there's some very cool things you could do today with it. But so I don't mind if you remake it, because if it sucks, once again, my whole theory on remakes, if it sucks, I still got the original. That doesn't matter. I still got the original. It's awesome. So take a shot at it, but I don't think there are any plans with it. All right, folks, listen, that'll do it for us for today. Thank you so much for joining us. And listen, folks, like, if you want to support our show, the very best way you can support us, number one, click that thumbs up button that you see. That really helps us out a lot. Number two, click the subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. Keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news. And, of course, our daily AMC Movie Talk show and our brand new AMC Mailbag show that we do a couple times a week. And listen, take the show too and share it. Share it on your Twitter. Share it to your Facebook. Help spread the word about AMC Movie Talk. That would be great. That would help us out a lot. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AMC Theaters. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/AMC Theaters. Going out and see a movie tonight. There are so many really good movies in theaters right now. Fast and Furious is still out there. You got Hangover 3. You got Iron Man is still there. You've got Catch Me If You Can. No, Now You See Me. Catch Me If You Can. Now You See Me. So many great ones. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for your theater, showtime, and movie ticket information. I want to thank, as always, the lovely Chrysalie Kennedy, who makes me tongue-tied.
Thanks for having me.
The one and the only Mr. Dennis Zen.
Thanks for having me on.
And most importantly, thank you to you guys. Listen, once again, the most important part of the show is certainly not what we have to say. It's what you have to say. Become a part of the conversation. Jump on down to the comments section of this video and leave your thoughts on any or all of the topics that we discussed here today. So, until next time, my name's John Campia for AMC Movie News, and until then, bye-bye.